Welcome to FoundHer Rising, the podcast for women founders in wellness, coaching, and consulting who are ready to build businesses that create freedom, impact, and income. I'm your host, Christine Hakkola, business coach, former psychotherapist, and mentor to women scaling service-based businesses. Today, I'm joined by Carly Craver, a coherence coach and neuroscience guide. She helps high-capacity women reclaim personal power through identity-level rewiring and inner coherence. Carly, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
It's so nice to have you here. I remember you vividly from our initial conversation many months ago, and I've been so excited to dive in and learn more about your business.
Yeah, this is great. I'm excited too.
Okay, so let's do it. Let's just dive in. So even your introduction is a bit of a mouthful for myself, I'll admit, and I'm sure for some of our listeners. So tell us, what do you do? And you can walk us right back to the beginning and just explain about the business that you have.
Yeah, sure. So what I noticed in my corporate time is that I just kind of naturally started working with people who were really successful and having conversations with these people. They were, high functioning performers, but they were broken. They were they just reached the peak of their career. And they were just totally, burnt out, but it was deeper than that, they just felt hollow inside, empty. Wow. And they felt stuck and they just didn't know how to get out of that. And that, was really interesting to me, and it kind of lined up with what my kind of personal life experiences was. And so what kind of naturally evolved from that is me working with people how to rewire their identity, because the core problem with these women and, actually some men as well, with these leaders was they were just living an identity that they were taught and conditioned to believe they were supposed to have.
Yeah.
And so it was, a lot of deep work working with people one-on-one to strip all of that away and get back to the core essence of who they are, and then to live your life from that person. Yeah. And, it's such a foreign concept for people. They don't understand that when you have that, when you embody that inner coherence, that inner truth with who you are, then everything in the outside world is a reflection of that.
Yeah. I love all this so much, and I'm very vividly reminded of why we connected in the first place, and certainly the first part of what you said about professionals burning out. You said it much more elegantly than I did. I can certainly relate to that. And I know we spoke in our initial meeting as well about how your own personal journey hitting rock bottom informed what you do. And I hear that narrative so often with the women that I work with, is whether it was hitting rock bottom or some other really profound personal experience, is really what has informed their work. Say a little bit more about how you work with people, because it sounds a lot like therapy, but I know that what you do is different than that and more intricate than that. How do you actually help people?
Yeah. So, and just to take a step back to touch on my journey. So I spent 11 years navigating my own healing. I would call it my healing era, 11 years. And that was from the time I, had a mental breakdown. And then the next step was learning about my brain, why I was behaving and thinking and feeling the way that I was. So neuroscience. And then that led to studying energy and quantum physics, and going through therapy and all of the sort of, traditional medical models. And then I get into somatic therapy and all this stuff. I was just trying everything because back then there wasn't really a roadmap. And
I so get it.
Because
I do. I feel like we have the same story. It's amazing.
Yes. And, it was because I was living from the place of someone broken and battered and kind of my spirit was dead and so sad and tired. And so that was my identity. And that's why, that was the core of the reason why I was feeling how I was. So when I learned how to recalibrate my identity and to transmute, the hardship and the pain from everything that I had been through, it's like everything just changed like that. And so I built the Quantum Codex, which is a digital program for people who, it's like short circuit the process. You don't have to spend years and years trying to figure out what works from you. If you can master your own mind and your energy, you can really accelerate the process and bypass a lot of what I had to go through.
Yeah. This is very, very cool. Part of me wants to just dive into, tell us about the Quantum Codex, but I'm going to reel myself in and go back a little bit because I really want to give the listeners the full story and I want to hear it too. You experienced some really early success and I'm not surprised. And you also shared with me that the earlier model that you built of your business, even though you were successful, didn't work. Like that in and of itself was burning you out and it wasn't a fit for you. And even when you didn't have very many clients, the work that you were doing really stretched you thin. Tell us a little bit about what it was that didn't work about that business model and the shift that you made.
Yeah. So in my corporate career, I worked in healthcare. And, kind of every single vertical from pharmaceutical to consulting, hospitals, startups. And I really was walking a thin rope. I had seen just all, the financials behind everything. And it was super unaligned with my beliefs. Yeah. And so I had to get out of that. So I jumped off the cliff. Once, I became intricately aware with how the system works. So then, and because I love wellness and health and functional medicine, I thought, and I'm really good at marketing, like that's my background. So, that's an easy transition. So I started, leading marketing teams for wellness technology brands. And I thought, oh, well, this is, a natural fit. Like this is going to be great. And then I still actually even more quickly burnt out.
Wow.
It took me about 15 months.
Yeah.
And, again, I had to ask myself, like, why is this happening? There's something still isn't in alignment.
Right.
I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not serving people in the way that I'm supposed to be serving them.
Right. Your body and your burnout was just giving you that message.
Yeah. And a lot of people, this will happen to them. They will have these physical symptoms, that it's trying to tell you to look elsewhere, to route in another way. You hear these stories of people who will have, real physical responses to what they're doing. And it's really your body and your spirit trying to tell you to wake up and take a different direction.
Yeah, I think a lot of our listeners, and I'll put myself in that camp as well, can resonate with the feeling of knowing when your body is telling you that something is misaligned, that you're off. Where I see a lot of people get stuck, and I want to hear more about your experience here, is how do you know what it is that your body's telling you? Is I wish our body could speak English and say, well, Christine, you're just doing X, Y, and Z. But most of us are just left to then interpret, what is it that isn't working? And furthermore, what do I do about it? So for you, say a little bit more, Carly, about what was it about the business model? Was it one-on-one? Was it done for you services? And what are the specific changes you decided to make so that wouldn't happen again?
Yeah. So, and this is a great question because so many people will feel the friction in their lives, but they don't really know where to start. Yeah. But we don't have to overcomplicate things. So for me, it's like, it was waking up every day and what is it that I loathe that I have to do? What am I procrastinating? What am I waiting to the last minute? What is killing my life force? What is like sucking the energy? And you can, it's when you think of it that way, it's pretty easy to identify what things are doing that. Yeah. And it could be the most menial task. It could be a bigger project. And then to do the opposite, what are the things that give you life and give you energy and fun and make you feel, vibrant and vivacious? And it's like, then how do you 10x those things and minimize the others? And so, very simply, like moving more in the direction of the things that, light you up and doing less of the things that don't.
Yeah.
And some people will say, oh, well, I have to do these things. And it's like, well, to a point, but the way that it works is the way that internal and outer coherence works is when you honor those things that do give you energy, it's like, you don't have to know how it works. You just have to know that it works. So when you honor who you are and the things that you enjoy, then you will create more opportunities and abundance and prosperity and flow for you to continue doubling down on those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm imagining I have this image of our listeners just like nodding along. Yes. It sounds so amazing. And just to bring it into some practical strategies, I'll share one of the ways that I do that is my calendar and my to-do list. And it's just a vibe. Like most of us, especially women, I like to think are, so wired to this. You just look at your calendar, right? And I can read through the things that are on my calendar that day. And if I go slowly enough, I feel it. I can read one thing and I feel what happens in my body. I read another thing and I feel the excitement. And same with my to-do list. There's the things that I just kind of push to the bottom because I get an icky or heavy feeling. And there's things that come up to the top, sometimes out of a sense of urgency, but often because those are the things I love doing. And I know that for myself, for the women that I serve, and I'm assuming for our listeners, the next question then becomes, well, like, what do you do about that? So I'd love to hear for you. What are some of the shifts that you made in your business models specifically so that you could focus more on what you love to do and what lights you up?
So I started building my own thing while I had clients. So once I was able to identify the things that I enjoy, which very simply was like, okay, I really enjoy showing people what makes them so unique and and reflecting back to them when they are telling me about the things that they love to do and the things that drag them down. And so, people always tell me that I'm like the best cheerleader, and I'm like, oh, well, that's great. But I feel it too, because it does give me energy to sort of reveal to people like what makes them so special and so powerful too, because I think so many of us just don't know who we are and what we're capable of. And so just and we also, often the things that are the most natural to us, we don't realize they're our strengths because they're easy for us. They're so easy that we forget about them. We kind of like toss them out. We don't even consider that they're, something that we could really do with and monetize. Yeah. So knowing what those things were for myself, which is that, helping people, kind of wake up to what they're good at and what they can do. And so I thought, how can I do more of that? And so that kind of evolved into more writing about it and talking about it online and, creating content around that. Like I am an artist, like at my core, and I never had a social media presence before. I would post travel pictures and stuff, but never, not creating content for the public. And so that was actually, and that's like an important part of this process too, is you have to do oftentimes the things that we have the most fear around are exactly the things that you're supposed to do.
I so resonate.
So like I had this deep fear of being seen, right? And so I like to stay behind the shadows and off the grid.
Yeah, here you are on a podcast.
Right. And then when I moved through that, like, this is my identity. Like this is what I do for a living, and this is how I make money. And I'm supposed to, because this is how I help people.
Before we keep going, I want to say something. If you're listening to this and thinking, oh, I'm in that season right now, I'd love to talk to you. FoundHer Rising isn't about polished success stories. It's about real growth. The hiring decisions, the revenue plateaus, the identity shifts that happen when your business starts stretching you. If you're building something meaningful in wellness, coaching, or consulting, and you're willing to have an honest conversation about what scaling actually looks like, apply to be a guest. The link's in the show notes. I'd love to meet you. Okay, back to the episode. Maybe a little bit, as I feel like you probably have some advice here about the difference between fear and intuition. This is a topic that's been up for me a lot. is the women that I work with, and I know that you and I are wired the same way, are listening to our intuition and making aligned decisions is so important. And sometimes we mistake what we're afraid of or what makes us uncomfortable or things that are just difficult or new for our intuition saying like, oh, that's not for me. How do you tell the difference, and what advice do you have for the listeners about how to make that discernment?
Yeah, I love this question because you know what? A lot of times when people say trust your gut, well, sometimes your gut wants to keep you in your safety zone, right? Because our nervous systems want to keep us in the comfort level that it's very happy in. So I say, actually, David Goggins says this. He says, callous over your fear and move forward. And it's so true. It's like, because look, when you look at a fear, we're still living from the primitive brain, right? Like it's not actually, you're not going to die.
Yeah.
So you have to move forward. If it's a fear of like posting something on social media, for example, or having a difficult conversation with a loved one you just want to like express yourself and you have a fear of doing that, you have to just take action, learn how to take action, but you're not going to be ready to take action until you signal safety within yourself first.
So well said. Yeah. And it's really figuring out the difference between intuition that's leading you in the right direction or that is values aligned versus those feelings that we have that are really just signaling like, this is scary, right? And are activating that more primal part of our nervous system that says danger, danger, when really it's just the unknown, and it's something unfamiliar that we've not experienced yet.
Right.
Yeah. Amazing. So we've been talking about aligned action, and you didn't use these words, but what's coming to me is you've refused to settle. You had a business that worked, but it wasn't working for you. And even though it was scary, you pushed through that. How do you operate your business differently today based on that learning and that knowing about yourself?
Yeah, I quit trying to grow fast, and I just started building my business growth around having a regulated nervous system first. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like pausing to just let that land, is the idea of how different would it be to show up to our business and make decisions and move through our work with a regulated nervous system versus, and to borrow your phrase that I've heard you use, is versus being on full throttle all the time.
Yeah. And a lot of us, American culture, world culture is like, we were conditioned to be ambitious and, having giant and outputs and doing it in a really quick way. And I kept hitting the wall when I did that. And so it's, growing without having the capacity in your nervous system to hold that always leads to burnout.
So yes, I totally agree. That is so true. Something I want to name here, Carly, and something I've personally experienced and I experience with every female business owner that I work with, is there's this misconception as we start to grow, and especially as we outgrow the business model that we started with. And a lot of us have experienced that or are experiencing that. There's this idea that I think we're sold or that we're bought into, that if we can just figure out the right business model, whatever that means, right, for us, right, for our clients, that actually works and is profitable, values aligned, that we won't have these problems. And my experience is that regardless of your business model, there's always problems. The problems are just different. And what does get easier is that knowing there's problems and having grown these capacities within ourselves as we've worked through the problems gives us the space and the resilience and the capacity to approach these problems in a more skillful way. So I'm curious, as you shift into this new business model, what are the problems that you now see at this next level that you're either anticipating may happen in the future or that are happening now? And how are you approaching those differently? I can be more pointed if that's hard to answer.
Yeah, I feel like I'm definitely in an unknown, like unfamiliar to territory with what's next. And I'm fine with that. Like I thrive in these spaces because I've just learned how to. Yeah. I think like a lot of people, actually my sister-in-law, she is like an amazingly organized and like planned person. And I used to so admire, and I do admire it. And I would want that for me too. I'm like, why can't I design my life like that? And I just, for whatever reason, I had to learn to embrace the unknown. So it's quite natural for me. But that's part of, I think, like the work is everyone can learn how to embrace the unknown and going back to, again, how we have been, not wired. I mean, it is natural. It's how our brains work. We think, oh, if I don't know this, right? Because we want certainty. Our brains crave certainty and safety. And so we naturally will think if we don't know, then that's unsafe. But it's like the reality is when you don't know, there's an unlimited number of possibilities. So as there are so many problems that you don't know about, there's going to be so many ways that you can solve those or pivot alongside of those. And so I think it's a good place to be.
I agree with you. And I think it's also really important to validate how uncomfortable that can be. And some of us have a higher risk tolerance or a higher tolerance for discomfort than others. And I think having a higher tolerance is a benefit as an entrepreneur. I know that I personally went through a shift in my business when I broke through to a new income level, when my business was operating in a way that I wasn't used to. And I remember a time of sitting in that discomfort of, wow, it was almost a paradox of, on the one hand, this is what I've been working towards. The boxes are checked. And on the other hand, this is so uncomfortable because it's so new and I've never experienced this before. And many times what I see is, for those of us who aren't aware that this is normal, this actually holds a lot of potential, is we get scared and we go back to doing the things that we did before, which unconsciously sabotages our business and sabotages our efforts. At the stage that you're at now, I'm hearing from you, like, you have the awareness. I'm not afraid for you that you're going to do that. And sometimes the scary part is I don't know what the next level problems are. Sometimes they're team and hiring and field outsourcing. Sometimes it's building systems and knowing that we got to get everything out of our head because it can't live there anymore. Sometimes it's around business model and audience. What would you say is the top one or two things that you get curious about as you think about where your business is headed in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, you actually reminded me of something, an issue that I do know I'm going to have to address. And I know that this is particularly for women business owners is a thing. So one of the challenges for me is the financial management piece. And also because when you do reach higher levels of income, like you said, you can think about money as, money is a tool. We know that, but when you think of it in terms of abundance and prosperity, like that, it's another nervous system thing.
Yes.
So if you think of it like a thermostat, because we can all like have the ability to call in a lump sum of money or we can command like a raise or, get to a new level where your income really jumps. But if you haven't increased your internal thermostat alongside of that jump, then you're going to either, lose the money or you're going to spend it as fast as it comes in.
Right. We just go back to doing what was familiar.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I remember I read a book a long time ago, and the author is escaping me right now, but the book is called The Big Leap. And it was really a pivotal moment in time of helping me recognize when I was at those stages where what was being asked of me was for my capacity in my nervous system to just have a little bit of time to recalibrate, to hold what was next.
Yeah.
And I think that's so valid. I think it happens in all aspects of our business, hopefully not all at once, but it sounds like for you, as you move into this next level, you're so capable. You've got the marketing down. I know that you've had a team in the past. But it sounds like what's up for you is how do I, recalibrate my nervous system to accept this new level of income? And I would suggest from a business coaching perspective, it also requires just the skill of knowing how to handle money a little bit differently, because running a $50,000 or $100,000 business is not the same as handling a $500,000 or a 7-figure business. And there are some really simple spreadsheets and metrics that we can have on hand and keep up to date. Some of us hear me say that and they're like, oh, like spreadsheets and metrics, right? I am not an accountant. I am not a financial advisor. I'm just a regular old business owner. And I will say, and I'm saying this partially for you and partially for our listeners, that what is required at that multi-6, low 7 level is learnable. It's totally doable. And it's just a matter of learning what are those key metrics? What are those 2 spreadsheets I need to have on hand, and learning those skills. And doing that and taking, sometimes I'll use the phrase like taking our head out of the sand when it comes to money. Because a lot of us, feel like that's what we're doing. Just don't look and it'll be okay. But the willingness and the bravery to just take our head out of the sand, learn how to do a cash flow sheet, learn how to do a profit and loss projection, and keep track of, 3 to 5 simple numbers can make all the difference in the world in our business.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely. Amazing. So final question for you, Carly. What is next? Where do you see your business? And maybe 5 to 10 years is too long. If you have that vision, I'd love to hear it. But even in the next 6 to 12 months or 1 to 3 years, what are you planning on building? How do you see your gift and your service impacting the people that you serve?
Yeah, I want to build an environment and community where ambition and nervous system, safety and architecture coexist. So I want a community of, millions of people and not just women. Like it's time for, unity, like women and men. This is for everybody. I just want more people, learning about this work. Mm-hmm. It's fundamental to prosperity and success and freedom and peace and, building a new global community around this work, like effectively will change so many things. And so that's where I'm headed.
I can so get behind this vision, Carly. This has been so fun and inspiring. I could easily keep talking about this topic for many hours to come, but we're going to wrap up here. And I have a feeling that there are folks listening who are so intrigued by your work and what you're building. Where can people find you? What's the best way to get in touch? Yeah,
they can find me I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. My handle is Carly E. Craver, and my website is c2infinity.co.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you, listener, for tuning in to FoundHer Rising. If today's episode resonated with you, follow the show, share it with another founder, and leave a quick review. It helps more women find these conversations. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or learn more at hakkolahorizons.com. Until next time, keep rising and keep building the business that gives you freedom to live, lead, and create on your terms.